7 o'clock, I will call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees. First item on our agenda is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'll turn that over to Mr. Key.
Welcome to BC students tonight. First of all, we have Paul Dirk doing the invocation. Paul is a senior at Brooklyn Case High School, where she maintains a 5.025 GPA. Is enrolled in the Quest program. She is a member of the Mock Trial Club, DECA, and has attended Girls State. Outside school, Paul enjoys reading, running, working out, and spending time with her friends. She also volunteers at Lexington Medical Center. After graduation, Paul plans to attend USC to major in biology. She wants to go to the USC School of Medicine and become a heart surgeon. Also, we have Haley Martin with us tonight. She did Pledge of Allegiance. Haley is a senior at Brooklyn Casey High School, where she maintains a 4.893 GPA. Is enrolled in the Quest program. She is a member of the host and has attended Girls State. Haley is the current Miss Bearcat. She volunteers at the Partners program at Lexington Medical Center and with the Alzheimer's Association at Lexington Extended Care. When Haley is not at school or volunteering, she enjoys spending time with her family. After graduation, Haley plans to attend USC AP to major in nursing. She then wants to go to USC School of Medicine and become a certified registered nurse anesthetist. Y'all got it.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing us with the privilege of a good education. Please be with us during this meeting to congregate and discuss how to improve the educational needs of students. Please speak with the board members tonight as they discuss how to better improve the future. We ask for you to be in our hearts and to guide us for your will and nurture of you. We love you and are thankful for you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Without objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. And then we'll move to public participation period. We have no one that signed up to speak at public participation period. So we'll move on to reports of honors and accomplishments of students and staff. Dr.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bingham, I've got a couple of things before we recognize Jayla. One, from a personal note, I'd like to thank this board. I was not at the last board meeting, and I cannot tell you the value of being away and the insistence of this board that I not be. You all have been more gracious than I could ever expect. Moving on, before I do my John Boehner impersonation. If you're not a Republican, you probably can't. Our board has been awarded award, and several of our board members went to pick it up yesterday from the Rise Above the Coalition in Lexington County. Our board has implemented policy against drug use, has put in policy to assist children that have drug addictions and tobacco and alcohol addictions. And so for that, our board has been recognized by the Lexington County Rise Above the Coalition, and I think that's a very admirable thing on behalf of our board. So thank you for that, Mr. Bingham. Now, Janet, I think we've got a slide because this is absolutely amazing. Jayla, would you come up, please? Jayla's been here before, but this I've never been this close to this much speed. I'm feeling good about it. This young woman is a Region 5 4A champion in the 100-meter dash, the 200-meter dash, the 400-meter dash, and the long jump. That's 4 state championships. She's a Region 5 4A female track and field athlete of the year. At Silver Fox Invitational, she was the most valuable player and placed first place in all events she entered. She's a Bob Jenkins Coaches Classic MVP and placed first in all events attended. Bojangles Track and Field Classic Sprint MVP, first place in the 100-meter and 200-meter events. South Carolina High School State Champion, 100-meter, 200-meter, 400-meter, and long jump. That gives her a total of 8 state championship wins as a freshman. Yeah. New Balance National Outdoor Meet, she placed second in the 200, making her number 2 in the nation in the 200-meter, along with all of the high school female athletes throughout the United States. The Nike Prefontaine Classic, she placed second in the 100-meter. She received a personal invitation from Nike to compete in this event, featuring the top track and field athletes from inside and outside the United States. She was the 2019 Gatorade Track and Field Player of the Year for the state of South Carolina. And in addition to that, she has a 3.7 grade point average, which when I was in school, I didn't even know you could get a 3. Congratulations.
We'll move to unfinished business, which would be the second and final reading of Board Policy DKC, Expense Authorization Reimbursement, Policy JQ Student Fees, Fines and Charges, Policy GBGD, Workers' Compensation, ARGBGD-R, Workers' Compensation Policy, and ADF Wellness Policies on Physical Activity and Nutrition.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bingham, my understanding is that the last board meeting, the board approved the first reading with a change about having this giving superintendent authority to waive fees for students where there was an exceptional need. That's been placed in, and we would recommend that you approve the second reading.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
We have to repeat all of that. You make a motion, did we just accept everything that you just said?
All right, we have a motion to approve all these policies?
Yes.
Motion to approve all the policies?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Root. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to new business, where we've got certification of delegates for the South Carolina School Board Association's 2019 Delegate Assembly.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Ms. Cindy Kessler to be our delegate and have our votes
I
for
need to
that.
have a private conversation. I didn't see you.
So anyway, I make a motion that Ms. Cindy Kessler be our delegate with our votes.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I'm going to be there. I will be there.
Okay, good.
And Ms. Reed, you can just move down to alternate in case you can't be there.
Right, yeah, well, I think
I think we have to name
we
an
need an alternate. Ms. Kessler will carry all of our votes, but in case for some reason she was not being able to attend, Ms. Brandon would be able to vote, so we won't lose our, I think if we don't vote, we lose some of our
Right.
voting rights
You do,
in the future.
you do.
All right, so the motion passed. So-
Congratulations, Ms. Kessler.
Let's move on to next item is consideration of a request for out-of-state travel for the Instructional Technology Facilitator Southern Business Education Association Annual Conference in Daytona Beach in October.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept administration's recommendation and approve the request for out-of-state travel.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is discussion of intra-district athletic transfer rules. This was put on the agenda by Mr. Summers, so I'm going to allow Mr. Summers to speak at this time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that we currently we don't have an standing athletic policy or rule book in our district, and seeing the need for us to be able to provide guidance to anyone who's seeking information about the function or governance of of the athletics in our school district. Correct me if I'm just making a recommendation that the board direct Dr. James and his staff to draft a course of action that will ultimately embrace the board's goals to clearly define the role of athletics in our district. And I would state that at a minimum, this document would address the expectations of student athletes, code of conduct for coaches, recruiting, and transfers. That's my recommendation.
Okay. So, as I understand it, and we've been including in our packets a copy of the Rock Hill School District rules. But as I understand it, Dr. James, you haven't had an opportunity to be able to draft a draft policy for Lexington 2 at this point.
No, sir. We got before the board officer meeting, we got that request from Mr. Summers. But we can put that together and bring the board back.
And I guess I would ask that do you need any guidance from the board or any information from the board to prepare us a draft policy to look at?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I think I know where Mr. Summers is trying to go with this, and I certainly do think that we need to look at things like district-wide athletic manual and things like that we've discussed in the past, and he and I kind of talked about that. I do feel, though, that this type of thing, just because I'm unsure exactly what Mr. Summers may have in mind, may be different than what I have in mind, it might be different from what Ms. Kessler has in mind. Would this not be better for like a agenda item for, if we didn't want to wait until our January workshop, then one of the first Thursdays of the month, we could always have a workshop and maybe discuss and define a little bit better where are we going, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to put in like district rules that each student must attend school, 3 or 4 periods a day if they get to play that night, or those type of things? Because I think that when Mr. Summers has talked to me about this in the past, that he and I think he was thinking one thing and I'm thinking another thing, and I can kind of see that we might need to do this, but I just think it might be better for us to discuss, and then if staff hears what we're discussing, they might get better be able to draft a policy that would, look good for all of us. That's just a suggestion.
Well, I mean, obviously, that's part of what we want to try to do, figure out the best way forward to try to get to that point. And I guess it may be helpful if the administration sort of, if nothing else, develops sort of a checklist of things they would want to include, or possibilities for things to include, so that when we do have a workshop, we've got something to really base it on. We like this part, we don't like that part. At this point, we really don't have anything to say vote up or vote down, but we need to get the administration involved to see sort of what are the possibilities, what are they thinking might be necessary, I guess, for the board to consider, and then we could have that ready to go to a workshop where we then talk about it in more depth to get to an actual policy where we can say vote up or vote down or modify one sentence. Get us something to where we can make a motion.
I think it's just my concern, like, I think the example policy that was given to us by Mr. Summers was this Rock Hill one, and I would be adamantly opposed to the majority of this. I mean, I have no problem trying to hold coaches and adults accountable for things that they should not be doing, but I have a real problem putting restraints on our children. I mean, this isn't the same school district that the majority of us grew up in and attended in. Our students aren't growing up in the same household from the time they're in first grade all the way until they graduate high school, and they go back to see their grandparents and their parents there when they have kids years later. It's not the same thing. We're a very transient society. We're a very transient district. You could look at just the transfer numbers in and out of some of our elementary schools, where I think one of our elementary schools gave us the statistics one year that they flipped, 60% of their school population, I think was the number, within one school year. And we're gonna put a restriction like this on kids just trying to go within our own district and move around and stay living in our district. So I would be really concerned about just saying, hey, bring this, and then, I mean, I'm for, let's hold adults accountable. I'm against, let's penalize kids.
And I hear what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, but there would be an appeals process, and I think with any document, there would have to be an appeals process for, as you're saying, for hardships, whatever the situation might be with the students. But at that point, you know, as you said, as we discussed it or previously, I think that having a document in place, or at least something that we can look at and have to discuss, and you know, at this point, we don't have a guideline, we don't have a tool.
For the last 8 or 10 years, this topic has been a major critical issue in our district. We have had transfer after transfer after transfer that has been divisive, has created dissension and division in our district. I am very much in favor of spelling out a very strict policy to give us some guidelines. Some of the things that have happened in the 8 or 10 years have altered communication, feelings, animosity, and it's time for it to stop. We tried to get something going for it. I've even submitted names and addresses of students that were attending and participating in athletics in this district that didn't live in this district. And when graduation came around and I got an invitation and there was their address in another district, that was proof to me. It was proof to me beforehand. And those things have been going on, and it is past time for this to stop. We're doing a discredit to our kids by creating an atmosphere that encourages wrongdoing, and it needs to be addressed. And I can.
Well, and I think what I'm trying to do is to figure out what's the best way to try to address.
I think the administration needs to come up with a policy, and like Beth just said, if we have something in there that we strongly disagree or agree with, then we'll discuss it then. But to sit down, we're going to go into another year to get this together, and I think it's something that needs to get going now. I think we've waited long enough, and if we wait, I know we're all going to have input and something that we want to say pro or con about what they come up with, and we might want to add something or take something out, but we've got to have it starting, and that's the starting point.
Well, then what I would suggest to the board, based on what I've heard, is let's sort of ask administration to start developing something, but we'll have a workshop to sort of, before we get to the point where we're voting on anything, we'll just have a workshop, talk about what they've come up with. Does that seem fair?
As long as we all have the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, I mean, I think we've got to have something in front of us to start talking about. That's the problem. I mean,
well, exactly, and I mean, and I have to, you know, we have to make sure that the children aren't hurt in this. I mean, kids move around in our district because they can't control if their parents have to move from one rental property and the lease is up to another rental property. And I understand the system that Bud wants to put in, but I mean, you know, what if you don't have time to, you're a single parent, you've got to start an appeal process, things, you know, they're moving from one house on one side of the district to another house on the other side of the district. And we've proven that they've moved and they're still in the district. You know, what if they forget to do the appeal process? I mean, there's a lot of check and balances, and at the end of the day, I understand what everybody's saying, but the main thing is that our students don't get penalized because of the adults.
Mr. Bennett, don't you think that once the students understand that we have a policy and that they're going to have to follow this policy, that will make them toe the line and seek housing in this district or wherever they are?
I'm saying in this district,
Cindy,
Cindy, I understand that in this district, but if you live in this district and you rent and the parent's lease is up and the only other place they can find to rent is zoned for a different school in our district, the student has no control. And what if the parent can't come make the appeal? So I understand what everybody's saying, and I agree we probably do need to have handbook where everybody understands the rules. But at the end of the day, the main thing is that the students don't get hurt because a parent lost their lease and has to move to another neighborhood. I understand what you're saying about out of district. I totally understand that. But if you have to move with inside the district, that's where I have a little bit of a problem when this one says if you move, you sit out a year. If they forget the appeal process, and you know, and then what consists of an appeal? I mean, every child is going to feel like their situation warrants an appeal. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's something we really have to discuss and make sure we're not hurting our kids.
Ms. Bingham, and I guess it just gets back to, in my job, and right now I'm doing a lot of partying at Light and Works, I'm going in people's houses, I'm seeing how much kids are having to move in Lexington County. I did a recent poverty simulation at a conference I was at, and honestly, that's something, Dr. Bill, I would love to see us get a big enough group to include our board, because our board needs to do a poverty simulation, because we don't know, I don't know, you don't know, nobody sitting at this table understands or knows poverty, and except for these people out here who have them sitting in their schools and their classrooms every day. It's like, we're saying, okay, we'll give you 5 days as a parent to make an appeal. Well, mama might be working 2 jobs. She doesn't have time to go down here and work on an appeal. And, the daughter didn't have the choice of whether or not she was going to move when she came home with the eviction notice on the door. I just feel like we're being focused on trying to correct adult behavior, and I've always been against doing that by punishing children. And we're going to say it. And so that's why I said I don't like this at all. So if the district's going to use this as a starting point, I can tell you my vote would be no right now, because, I mean, I can't, why do we have school choice in our district if we're going to put in a policy like this? There is no choice. That's what we're saying. And these kids don't have a choice, because sure, they might have to go and move over here, and people can say, well, they can still stay with their other school and play and not lose their year of eligibility. Okay, well, who's going to get them to that other school? That bus that's running by their apartment, it can go into that other school. I just, saddens me.
That part, if I might add, and Brown, when you and I talked about it, make it clear, I apologize, but that part would be extended. That template, or that plan was just one of, only a couple that I could find when I was looking, and I understand where you're coming from, but it wasn't a lot to choose from at that time, and that was strictly or simply put there as what another district was offering. I wasn't advocating that we needed to adopt that plan. That's part of the starting point. That's all I was saying. There is an appeal process, even with that plan. There is an appeal for students, an appeals process. That would be up to whatever was crafted in the document to say that this is the process for an appeal. We would have to look at that for students.
But then the people who are on that appeals process board should be people who understand students living in poverty. It should be pastors, and it should be Rise Above It members, and it should be people, guidance counselors, and people like that, because I think it's a bad direction. If you want to, again, and I'll defer, we're going to turn it over to administration, and I trust them to try to come up with something good, and I'll just debate whatever point comes out of it at that point.
Okay.
Mr. Benton. Beth brings up a good point. We really don't know our district. I've gone several years. I've gone with teachers for home visitation, and many of our children are living in poor conditions. Being a child, experienced that for a couple of years in my life as a child. I understand that. I really do. But today I spent a couple hours on the internet. There's very few policies nationwide concerning this. There are a lot of complaints everywhere on how to deal with the problem. So the problem's coming across our country. Kentucky and Indiana have somewhat of a policy, but you have to pay for it. I didn't go that far. But we do have to look at it because it's not just a problem here. And this is not the only transit district in the state. There's a lot of kids in the same situation that are transit and move several times a year. But it is a nation's problem, and it would be nice for us to be ahead of the same time.
Well, I think that I'm still of the opinion probably the best way to get there, whether that may be voting against it completely, is we've got to have something to actually consider to do that. So I guess I would ask for the board's support and ask the administration to at least start the development of a policy. You know the district best, you understand the conditions and the concerns that you've heard expressed here. If you can, not saying that you can read a crystal ball, but at least bring us something that starts the development, and we'll put it on an agenda item for a workshop so that we can go into it more extensively as opposed to dealing with it during the normal business board meeting. That's acceptable. Everybody okay with that? Yes.
Mr. Summer, if you'll give Dan or I the points that you had, but I will tell the board that Brown brought me last year. BC has a handbook that they use. It's not district approved or board policy, and airport has one. So without objection, that'll be our starting point, is to look at what both of the schools are saying, and then some input from the high school league, and then Don has some connections still in North Carolina. We've got some connections to some other districts. So what we'll try to do is find out what we're doing as a practice rather than a policy to help develop that. But
yeah, I think
whatever
the idea is to allow you time as our administration to do your job. To what is it that we need, and however that works, because I can't act on what Rock Hill's policy is. That doesn't do me any good. Like Ms. Branham said, that our concerns may be different than their concerns, so we've got to be cognizant of that. But you're on the front line, so we're going to depend on you to start to help develop something. If it's a district policy, then maybe that's where we're headed as a district athletic policy. But we would just ask that you get something in some kind of draft form, so we got something to talk about more specifically than generality.
Okay, we'll start with what our two athletic directors have already got. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. We've got some stuff out there. So.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that point?
Well, I'll say I think that's real fair, because I think operationally the two schools have been doing something different, and that's probably on some different things. Some things airport holds a higher standard to, some things BC holds a higher standard to, that all of our schools need to be holding the same standard to that.
We got a, I did, I'm not sure I was even here when this came in, the request when all that was going on in Ripon County about did we have a handbook, and we were able to give them what the athletic directors have put together at the two individual schools. And of course, it's them holding their kids accountable. It's not the board saying this is our policy, but there's a lot of information that you brought to the BC handbook when we look at some stuff for us. So we can put that together and try to address our problems and be fair to everybody.
Okay.
We'll do
Let's move on to the next item, D, consideration of HVAC unit installation at Wood Elementary.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Jones. What we have is we have some HVAC units that have been failing at one of our elementary schools at Wood Elementary. And in fact, we had one to get so bad that we had to basically go ahead and replace it rather than spending money on something that we knew we were going to be asking you to replace anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that you award a contract, and I'm going to also ask that you ratify another contract that's already taken place. So I'll give you the ratification first. Again, we had the unit over that goes over the media center at Wood Elementary to go out. We went ahead and what we've done here is the maintenance department has purchased the units. What we're asking you to do is basically allow us to award a contract to install these units, put them in place on the roof. So again, we have to do one over the media center, so we'd like to ask that you ratify a contract with ASAP Mechanical in the amount of $8,346. $8,346 to ASAP Mechanical, and we'd like to ask that you approve of a contract to hire JM Mechanical to install the other two units in the amount of $15,000. Again, that's JM Mechanical in the amount of $15,000.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation to award the contract to JM Mechanical for $10,000 and the $8,346 contract to ASAP as soon as possible. 15.
Okay, we got a motion by Ms. Brandon, we got a second by Mr. Key. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Wait, you said we've already purchased the mechanical.
We've purchased the units, and we're just asking that we install them.
Double bargain, I just want.
Maintenance department's trying to save us a little money.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next on our agenda is consideration of digital sign for New Bridge Academy.
Yes, sir, we advertise for companies to give us bids on installing a new digital sign that's the same as what we have at all of our other schools. AAA sign would not honor the price that they have given us previously on the 14 that we've already put in place. They said the cost had gone up considerably. So we put it out there, we had good participation, we had 7 people to submit bids. And again, we'd like to ask that you award a contract to AAA Sign Company in the amount of not to exceed $28,000. That includes taxes and
How much did we go with?
it was $25,000 before, so about $3,000.
Motion to approve, a bid not to exceed $28,000 for a new sign for New Bridge Academy.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Key. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of 700 wing data phones and intercom at airport.
Yes, sir, we, as you know, we're renovating the 700 wing at Airport High School right now, so this is just to bring everything up to the same quality we have throughout the rest of the building. We'd like to install computer drops, phones, and so on and so forth. And we'd like to ask that you award this contract to Telecom Incorporated in the amount of $50,508. $50,508.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation to award the contract for the phones and intercoms at the 700 wing at Airport High School to Telecom the amount of $50,508.
A motion by Ms. Brown, and a second by Mr. Key.
I was misleading Bill.
It's been a long
I know,
day.
I almost let it stop.
Okay, we have, any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, consideration of 700 wing access controls and video cameras.
Once again, in the effort to remodel and provide same throughout the building, we'd like to ask that you approve a contract to install one access control to keyless entry point. And we're looking at 6 surveillance cameras and 700 wing. And we'd like to award that contract to A3 Communications in the amount of $14,136. 14,136.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation to award the contract to A3 Communication in the amount of $14,136 to the 700 wing for the video cameras at Airport High School.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wu. And we have a second by Mr. Key. Any further discussion?
I have a question, sir. Could this have been included in the original contract? Was this change work or?
We didn't do it because we had a fire at airport, and we were not using really that portion. We had, I think, a special needs class down there, and we had, a couple of other places. But when we had the fire, we basically just eliminated the use of everything except we continued to have, I think, auto body and toxicology. And we knew that we would be renovating, so we held off on doing it in this particular location.
Any other question? Being none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, consideration of property surveys.
Mr. Chair, in an effort to just make sure that we know what we have and also prepare for upcoming projects, and I'd like to modify this just to include upcoming projects. We'd like to get quotes from those surveyors that were previously approved for bond referendum projects for any survey work that we need to do, particularly at Ramsey, Taylor, Pear, and Pineview, in an attempt to basically know exactly what we have in preparation for possibly doing additional work there or in preparation for appraisals and that sort of thing. So again, I'd like to modify this and include those 4 locations as well as any upcoming projects that might arise in the next while.
And this would be to get pricing, or this is to?
This would be to get pricing and go ahead and proceed with getting those surveys done with the lowest prices.
But we just don't know how much the amount.
With it just being boundary, I think we'll be under the $10,000 limit that we have set in the district and in the state for having to go out and advertise for bids.
Okay, so what do you need us to make a motion to do?
That you allow us to get surveys done on these particular properties, and that we select a surveyor based on the lowest price.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve property boundary surveys for Granby, Taylor, Pear, Pineview, and upcoming properties at a reasonable price, that you deem reasonable price.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Key.
Are we doing H and I together or just H?
Well, right now, we're just doing H.
All right, being no discussion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of an appraisal for the Granby property.
As you know, we've been doing demolition of the old Granby building, and we would like to, in preparation for what the board might decide to do with this property down the road, we'd like to go ahead and again get quotes from companies that are available to do this type of appraisal, and go ahead and have an appraisal done on this property.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the administration's recommendation of approval to obtain 3 quotes for appraising the Granby property. And I think it's going to be under 2,000.
Yes, sir, it should be.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kessler, a second by Mr. Key. Any discussion?
I will say sometimes it's hard to get 3 quotes on something like this, especially if you're doing commercial appraisals, but we will make every attempt to do that.
Okay. I can tell you that I can probably give you the names of 2 people that we ought to probably use. Because they valued an old sewer pond $2,200,000 in the average for an old sewer pond.
I like it.
We need that appraiser on this one, is what I'm telling you. Because if anybody's gonna pay $2,200,000 for an old sewer pond, I got some property in oceanfront in Iowa.
I hear you.
So we need that guy. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of listing of property for sale.
And once again, Mr. Chair, just in preparation for whatever decisions this board might make in the future, I would like to go ahead and put out an RFP, request for proposals, for realtors that might have interest in listing our properties and choosing ones that might be most beneficial for our district. So the administration recommends approval to proceed with the real estate agent request for proposals.
Can you be specific and list those properties?
Can I list?
Yes, sir.
Well, right now, I think we're talking about Granby.
Okay, well, that's just property, so.
What he's looking for, Ms. Kessler, is we could have somebody on board that as property comes up, we enter into agreement that
Just so we don't have to do this.
over and over and over with each property, we would select somebody based on their proposal that would handle the district property until you all deem otherwise.
I just want to make sure that we're talking about basically Granby, Pineview, Taylor. Is there any other properties that would be in consideration from this administration?
Well, Don and I have talked a good bit, and, we're going to bring you some recommendations on the different properties that we have. But one thing that we don't want, and I think one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about, we don't want to leave the building sitting empty, and, if anything says that's a bad idea, it's the Granby building, because what happens over time is people do damage, people drag stuff out, people go into it, it turns into a nuisance. And so whether we sell property or whether we do something else, I think part of what we have to do is bring you a recommendation that is a sequential way of tearing down properties and maybe leaving some of them green in these communities. But I can tell you, we don't want to leave empty buildings any longer than we just have to look down to.
I just don't want to be shocked and come up with something that we hadn't even thought about putting on the market. I just kind of would like to be able to.
No, ma'am, we won't put anything on the market without the board knowing or approving. What we're saying is, as Don goes through this, we don't want to have to come back every month to get a new real estate agent. What we're basically saying, we'd like to take requests for proposals, kind of like you all did for architects when you started the program, and say, all right, we've talked to the board about ABC piece of property, the agreement is they'd like to sell it. call them up the next day and say, put it on the market, and we don't end up having to do a request for proposal every time we come up with a piece of property. So we're not necessarily saying, can we list this property now? We're saying, can we find somebody that can represent this deal?
So we're not considering listing the property, we're
No.
considering hiring a real estate agent.
That's my next
Correct.
question.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I thought, Cindy made the motion.
You asked the question.
I'll make the motion to accept administration's recommendation to approve that we proceed with real estate agent request for proposals.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Keith. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of approval of architect for demo and site plan.
Yes, sir, as you know, we have money in the budget to do some demolition work with some of our other buildings that are sitting vacant. And as money is available, we'd like to do demolition plans to tear those down, as Dr. James has already indicated. This board has already told us that they do not desire to leave any facilities standing, that people will vandalize. So at this point, we're looking for what are we going to be doing with our next few projects, and unfortunately, this wasn't covered in the bond referendum. So we feel that we need to choose an architect firm, so that we can continue with disposal of property or whatever this board decides to do down the road. So we'd like to recommend that we Jumper Carter Cease as the firm to prepare demolition plans and any potential site plans that we might have down the road.
I'll entertain a motion.
Don, is this, and I have a question, this is not debate, one motion gets made. I mean, is this a requirement? I mean, you have to have like an architect seal on it or something to do a demolition, or is this just?
You don't have to, but it certainly makes it a lot cleaner. It's just like, for instance, if this board decided that they wanted to buy a piece of property, let's say we decided to buy a house at Saluda River to extend the playground, technically you're supposed to get approval from the Office of School Facilities and the Staff County Department of Transportation before the board buys the property. Well, there are certain forms that you have to submit, and I've tried to do that in my previous life, by just basically hiring a civil engineer to do it. They don't do it very often, and I basically had to train that civil engineer on what to do. These architects have done it, they do it all the time, and they don't charge any more than what a civil engineer would charge. So, yes, it's something that a layman would not know how to do, and even with the experience I have, and now Mr. Cooper has a lot more experience than I do with this, with the Office of School Facilities, and he could probably help me get it right. But just in case we didn't, then that would, I don't know, I can make mistakes, and so yes, I think it would be best that we go ahead and hire an architect to do this.
Can you suggest that you want to include that in the three?
And then my second question would be, since we already just previously made a motion about the real estate people, should we try that process? I know I don't want buildings sitting as eyesores, so I want to tear them down before we like just walk away for a little while. But should we not go ahead and do that process maybe? And then, because somebody would pay more for like a piece of land with a school already own it, if they wanted to have some type of center or something that they could actually use the building, it might be worth more with our building sitting on it than the ones that are in good condition than with maybe because land is cheaper,
That's right, and we can certainly try that process with this board if they decide that they want to list it with the building, then that can be done. And if it doesn't sell, you don't get the price you want, then you can look at tearing it down.
And I think honestly, John, this is just like questions in my brain, not like questions. I think you've done an amazing job on our planning thing, but I just didn't know that. Do you think, I'm asking your advice, do you think that might be something we would want to consider to try to, let's talk to real estate people, whoever we pick for the three, and then.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm not saying leave buildings up for more than like 6 months or something,
Well, I don't want to disclose any more than I need to, but obviously this board has asked me to inquire with some of our local municipalities on any interest that they might have in some of our properties. I've done that.
Okay.
And
And I trust you, you don't say anything else, I trust your judgment, I'm just saying, this for consideration and the timing of it. I mean, I'm fine to approve them both, but that might be something to consider.
I think, Ms. Brandon, it's more precautionary. Again, we wouldn't tear it down without public board vote, but I think what Don's looking for is not to have to start the process. It's more or less just putting an architect on the table so that if he has to have an architect. So certainly we could sell the building that, even if we got the same amount, we would make money because we wouldn't lose the money that it costs to tear the building down. So you're right about that. If we sell it to the building on it, that's what we do.
we will be smart about it.
Well, either way you go, even if you sell the building, you're going to have an asbestos abatement plan or whatever you know, because that's going to be a factor. I know in the past, I mean, the facilities we sold where the facility was still there, they ended up telling us the building was more of a liability than it was an asset. You know, it's going to cost us more to tear it down than the whole property was worth. But we don't want that. So at this point, we have no motion on the floor.
Motion to approve administration's recommendation of John Carter C's as the firm to prepare demolition plans and site plans for Lexington 2.
We have a motion, we have a second by Mr. Key. Any further discussion?
I don't know if this is, when would be the right time to interject, but it's a good conversation here, but, and I talked to Don briefly, but previously, but as far as the communities that are affected by these properties, these schools, at what point, I don't know how we've done this in the past, do we, not say invite them in, but how do we communicate this information to the community that the school or the properties are in, or do?
Need to.
You're talking if the board decides to take action on the particular project.
Well, once the board decides to take action and tells us the direction that we're going in, whether we're selling a piece of property or whether we're going to tear down a building, leave a green space or whatever, what we will do is have Dawn lead that charge of getting information out to the local media, put it on our websites, and then all of our schools have an email system into the community, so we can pretty much flood the community with not just social media, but, you know, media, hard copy media.
If you recall last night's meeting, I told you about some people that have contacted me from one of the communities and saying that the district's not even communicating with them. And many of those people don't even have children or grandchildren in this area. So we really, in my opinion, we need to communicate with these people.
Well, right now, Ms. Kevin, we don't have anything to communicate.
No, but when it comes time.
Yeah, I mean,
Even if-
once y'all make a decision, we'll
They need to be reassured that we're going to look out for the best interests of the community and the district. They haven't even been told that.
well, you know, anytime that's come up, our from me, from Don, from all the folks here, is that we don't want to leave buildings where they're hazards, whether it's a site hazard, whether it's a physical hazard, whether it's pest, whatever. We don't want to leave that situation, and, you know, and we're never going to make a recommendation like that to the board, and I don't think this board has that in mind. So, you know, we try to reassure people as that question comes up, but as soon as Don makes recommendations about the sequence of disposal of property, we'll get that out. Don will get that to the communities.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of out-of-state or overnight student travel.
Mr. Bago, I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the administration and Mr. Hinton to let all of these children go on these trips.
No motion, do I have a second?
Mr. Bingham, I'll say.
Second by Mr. Key. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, now we move to administrative divisional reports, monthly financial reports.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, I put at your place an updated revenue summary. We had a little bit more from you. I just want to make sure you had the most up-to-date information for the end of August. But as you can see from what's today, it's not a huge difference, I guess. We're tracking pretty much where we were last year. The actual percentage with the updated information is 9.22% of the annual budget for revenue. Does anyone have any questions? The next report would be your expenditure analysis. Again, it's broken down by major category and by instruction versus support community services. They're again tracking similar to we were last year with 9.9% expended to date at the end of August. The next report would be your capital project commitments. Any questions? Then the final report in this book would be the capital activity fund with $815,000 available district-wide throughout all schools.
Okay. Without objection, the monthly financial reports will stand approved and presented. Move to administration and student services construction update.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we provided you with the latest information with regard to all of our projects. You have to answer any questions you might have. And once again, as you've seen these, we try to post these as quickly as we can for the community to see as well.
May I ask a question about airport? Sure, at the football season and during some of the season soccer, you've got people that park in the cafeteria parking lot, and football's had that being able to access it because they're constructing it now. So when they finish construction, will there still be a gate there that you can still park in that parking lot and walk the steps and through the raceway in the, it's a 700 car, I think, in the gym?
We would have to open up one of the breezeways or a couple of breezeways in order for that to occur.
Okay, the way it looked, and we're trying to make the arrangements for that. I guess from your comment, they're not. But sure, it's nice to be able to park in that because it's tight parking. To use that facility and walk through is really nice. And I debated it, if it was going to be over, but it has to. So it'd be kind of nice if there was a way that you could have a roll gate or something so that you could access the stadium by that walkway.
That would be an administrative call. Having served in the role of principal for several years, you would be opening up a lot of your campus that's not supervised to some students that to do things that you might not approve of.
It's been open for years now, come on.
Are you talking about like the breezeways, so that the doors would be open, but they would have access into those hallways to a certain point? Or is it blocked off where you can just only go straight through?
Right now, it would be closed, and we would discourage, I would assume the administration would discourage people from going into those areas because they can be fenced and locked, and you'd have to walk around the facility basically. If the administration so chose, they could open up the breezeway because we've got it lined so you can get equipment in and out of those courtyards. So if they wanted to, they could open up the fences and they could allow people to walk through there. But in order to do that, they would probably have to post some people in those areas, to keep people from going through the school.
What is the warranty under the contracts? I've seen it here where we had a walkthrough, punch list items were being checked, and after the 1 year, is 1 or 2, how long is that?
Most of the related items are warranted for 1 year. Mechanical and that sort of thing, I think we have a 5-year warranty on those. On roofs, we typically have a 20-year, 25-year warranty.
So you have substantial completion, then at that point, whatever's signed off, and then that's when the calendar starts.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What about the trees and shrubs?
They're supposed to be on the list. They are on the list. We've had one of the companies that we use has had some financial difficulty, but we're trying to make sure that those get taken care of. This is not the greatest time to plant trees, so I'm guessing they'll have to wait until it turns a little cooler.
Well, let's see, the stadium's how old? I guess it hasn't been a good time since then, because there's trees there that, and we've talked about them in here to be replaced. I guess I'm going to be a squeaking wheel, because it looks bad, and we've paid for it. And I'm still waiting for a fence post topping to be replaced as casing before that's signed off on too, because it's been missing since they installed the fence. Can't handle it.
If you'll tell me where it is, we'll put it on the list.
It should be on the list. It's right almost in front of the main building.
That's what I do a lot of lists, and I can't tell you the top fence post cap is. I know my memory's failing me, not later years, but it's a lot to keep up with.
If I just wait till you say it's finished, and nobody's breaking fire.
Any other questions? Let's move on to enrollment update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have in your packet tonight the day 10 enrollment. We have the enrollment the first 10 days to see patterns. What I gave you, what we saw was that our biggest changes in the enrollment happened in the first 5 days, which means that people are more used to now going online and registering. Because the last 3 to 5 days, 3 to 4 days, we didn't move much at all. The one good thing I will tell you that if you look at the very back page, our total, because we don't get funding from the state for 3 and 4-year-olds, we were 8647. Our 135-day report last March was 8633. We're right where we're supposed to be. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to annual, from Human Resources, annual report to the board.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. James. This time of the year, I bring you our annual report to the board. This report is provided to you so that we can look at trends in specific categories and just an overall pattern. And we look at it in several ways. This report is staffing certified to begin with as of August 30th, 2019. So at your places, you have a document there for your review. On page 1, you'll see that as of August 30th, 2019, we had hired 118 classroom teachers, guidance counselors, media specialists, and psychologists. The overall certified demographic makeup of the new hires follows in the second table. So you'll see that we have an induction class at that time of approximately 38 new teachers. Then you see that the average years of experience for our new folks is 9 years with 49 folks having a bachelor's degree, 3 new teachers, plus 18, 43 new employees at a master's degree, then the plus 30, 16, and a doctorate degree, and so forth. You know that we write a grant every year, and from that grant, in addition to other recruiting initiatives, we have provided a signing bonus, and we're proud of that. Mr. Smoke and I work together with that. You'll see a table here next, and it's entitled Overall Demographics of New Hires Qualifying for Stipends. You'll see how those stipends have been dispersed so far per school, the number of teachers qualifying for those stipends, and the area that they were employed. We plan for approximately 50 or 55 teachers in that category based on our 3-year, 5-year data trend. And so far, we are at approximately $150,000 for that particular category. One thing that continues to be of concern, in addition to just the overall problem, difficulty in finding teachers, is special ed coverage. Okay. Last year, we paid the way that we were able to cover our special ed classes, and I'm talking about the classrooms, not just the speech pathologist, the psychologist, but the classrooms, is providing stipends and moving our teachers around. That's how we're doing it this year. This table at the bottom talks about the overall demographics of special ed coverage, and while we still have those vacancies, we're serving our students accordingly. So the reason that I'm showing you that is, one of these teachers is a contracted teacher. Well, actually, 2 of the services are. And then we have another teacher who's been sent to another school. Last year, we had 6 of those. That trend is just simply on the rise. We also follow our data for our strategic plan by looking at our fiscal year. So page 2 will give you the overall administrative transfer data for the fiscal year. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory, followed by the support staff table. So at that time, as of that time, we hired 179 employees. Of course, all of those are not certified. Then, beginning on page 3 at the top, we talk about the certified staff vacancies as of August the 30th. And then, to correspond with our district initiatives and strategic plan, we follow our responses by noting why folks leave, what do they accept a position in another district, private school, virtual school, very, very specific. Do they leave because their spouse has been transferred, personal reason, family responsibilities, career change, graduate school? Was it a letter of agreement, or was there another reason, such as non-renewal, termination, breach of contract, or certification issues? The administrative and professional staff table at the bottom of page 3 also follows our strategic plan initiatives, where we follow our administrators who accepted another position in another district, administrators who accepted principalships, pursuing advanced degrees, personal or terminated, or then retirement. The last page is even more data that is physically related to last year in our attrition data. It gives you the reasons specifically that our folks leaving and how we monitor that attrition. And then the administrative category follows at the bottom. I'll be glad to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you, Dr. James.
Next up on our agenda is executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter a closed session for the following: consideration of personnel appointments and resignations, consideration of 2 requests of out-of-district commission appointments, discussion of contractual matters, discussion of property matters.
Motion second. Second by Ms. Wood. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are now in executive session.